Can we light a fire? I asked my dad. Can we light a fire? Because 1. I love lighting fires. And 2. You have to ask twice or 3 times. Once doesn't work, and 4 times is unlucky. I try to be lucky. 3 is the luckiest number. There are lots of ways you can be lucky, but more ways you can be unlucky. If you need more luck in your day, you can wear red socks or red underpants. If you wear red socks and red undies, watch out, world. The day is yours. Also, make sure that your hair is clean, but not too clean, and that you've done your face exercises in the bathroom mirror. Smile, frown, gasp, pull a funny face in that order, 3 times. Never 4 times. If you make a mistake and do it 4 times, then you have to do it 6 times altogether, because that's 2 times 3, and those are both lucky numbers. Can we light a fire, Dad? Dad lowers his newspaper, and I can only see his eyes. He's thinking. He's thinking that he's busy reading, but he wouldn't mind lighting a fire with me. He likes fires too. Sometimes we make a big fire in the garden in the fire pit, and I watched the orange flames on his glasses. He's thinking it would be a good thing to do, except that maybe it would encourage my love of fire, which he wouldn't want to do. She's a pyromaniac, he'd joke with his friends, and they'd all laugh and nod, but then they'd look uncomfortable, as if I would burn the house down while they were all sitting there, drinking their gin and tonics, which is really silly, because why would I burn my own house down? That would be very unlucky. Dad looks at his silver watch and then back at me. Maybe he's wondering when Mum will be home from visiting Aunt Jack's. Mum doesn't like it when I light fires. She says I don't understand how dangerous it is. I do. She says one day I'll hurt someone with my fire setting. I stand still as a statue and look at Dad. I can't ask again. I have to wait for him to decide. All right, he says, and gets up. He removes the advert section of the newspaper and shakes the remaining pages, then folds them neatly and presses them down. I like it when he does that. He has other neat habits that I like. 1. He butters his toast all the way to the edge. 2. He polishes the kitchen counter till it shines. And 3. He sleeps on the left side of the bed. I don't like it when he cuts himself shaving and then sticks a piece of tissue onto the cut. Blood is unlucky, and so are curse words, so shaving accidents are very unlucky. Dad stretches up for the fire-lighting box on the top shelf of the kitchen larder and brings it down. They always put it out of my reach, but one day I'll be tall enough to get it on my own. We go out into the garden, and the sun is hot on my hair and my back, but I don't mind, because we're going to light a fire. I go around the garden collecting kindling. I don't have to. We have firelighters, but I like to use dry twigs and newspaper. I like it starting off small and then feeding it and watching it grow bigger. When I was 4, I almost burnt down the timber Wendy house. Gran gave me a toy oven for Christmas, and it was perfect for the playhouse. I had small pots and pans and spoons and a pair of tongs with an alligator face. I liked the new toy, but I wanted it to work like a real oven. I wanted to look through the clear perspex door and see the orange light. I wanted to feel the warmth on my face. I watched my parents for days, until there was a gap where I could quickly snatch some matches before they noticed. My hands were shaking, and I almost dropped the box on the floor, but I managed to push it into my pocket without them noticing it was gone. I had an old U magazine inside the oven, which I had already crumpled up a bit, so it was ready to be lit as soon as I had something to light it with. Still trembling, it took 4 matches to light, and by then I already knew it would be bad. I knew I should have stopped, but it was like my body just kept moving to light the thin pages, even though my brain was saying that 4 matches are never a good sign. 4 matches are a very bad sign. The magazine whooshed beautifully into flames, and I felt so good watching it, knowing that I was the person who had created such a pretty thing. It was as if the oven was real and alive, and it was one of the most satisfying things I've ever felt. But then, things got bad, as I guessed they would. The oven caught alight, and the flames leapt to the red and white checked curtain over the window. I had a bucket of water ready, but I hadn't counted on the fire spreading so fast. The water doused most of the oven, but the flames jumped from the curtains to the dry timber roof. I ran to get more water, but the tap was so slow and I could hear the fire crackling behind me. Smoke was billowing out of the doorway. I rushed back with the water, sloshing most of it on my short legs on the way over, and splashed it over the burning curtains. It took 3 more buckets before the fire was completely out. Exhausted, coughing, and blackened with soot, I lay on the wet floor and closed my eyes, remembering the beauty of the flames licking the oven door, then the fabric, then the ceiling, the feeling of panic, of wildness, then relief. I lay there out of breath and exhausted, and knowing that I'd do it again. "You ready?" says Dad, and I nod. He had decided that we'd use the kettle bry, the smart, shiny domed barbecue grill he had recently bought. I think it's a good move because Mum will be less cross if there's a reason for the fire, if she doesn't need to cook dinner. I start by laying out some of Dad's newspaper and the small sticks, then put the coals on top. I like doing it neatly, even though the fire will mangle it. Fire doesn't care about neatness, or how you butter your toast. When I was 6, I stole a lighter from a teacher at school. Mrs. Delport had carelessly left it on the banister where she would smoke at break time, and as I was walking past, it was like a little hot siren blaring at me. I had no choice but to take it. It was waiting especially for me. Plus, it was red, which is like wearing a label that says lucky, and I needed luck that day because my best friend Emma wasn't playing with me, and I was wearing grey underpants. Having the lighter changed everything, because I didn't have to wait for my parents to accidentally leave some matches lying around, which they hardly ever did after the playhouse incident. My lighter was like a magic tool. I could light anything, anytime. It gave me such a powerful feeling. I started in the guest bathroom at home. I thought it would be the safest place, covered in beige tiles that can't catch fire. I would light scraps of paper in the basin and watch them burn and transform into ribbons of black ash. I'd burn different things to see how their flames compared. Orange, blue, red. My favourite was green because it was unusual. Some things hissed with sparks and some smoked a lot. Next, I'd spray the air freshener, scent of strawberries, and light that, which would result in a very satisfying whoosh and a fireball big enough to shock and please me every time. When I wanted to get closer to the fire, then I'd go into my mum's vanity cupboard and find her hairspray. I'd spray it all over my arms and then set them alight. I used to love that, watching the blue flames dancing on my arms, popping and hissing. I'd do this in the bath, so that as soon as I felt the fire start to eat through the lacquer and burn my skin, I'd just lower my arms into the bath water. I'd never intentionally burn myself or anyone else, although, of course, accidents do happen. Dad lets me use the long lighter, which has a small cartridge of paraffin and a trigger like a gun. He watches as I click it and hold the small orange flame to the balled-up newspaper. The fire starts slowly, timidly, just hungry enough for one piece of paper. Then it reaches for the dried twig above it. When I see fire, especially one I've lit myself, it's like there's a light in my darkness. The darkness that has always been with me, deep inside my body and my heart. The flames are so beautiful. I look up at Dad, wondering if he's thinking the same thing, but he's looking at me with a worried expression. He clicks the knuckles on his right hand, which he does when he's anxious, then takes the lighter away from me with a tight smile. "I'm going inside to marinate the meat," he says. "Don't touch the fire." "I won't." I step closer and lean into the warmth. Dad goes inside and taps on the glass, which makes me jump. "I'm going to watch you through the kitchen window." I nod. I resist the strong temptation to play with the fire. I just stand and watch it burn. When Mum comes home, she pulls me towards her and smells smoke on my dress. She checks that the firebox is tucked safely away and strokes my hair. She's happy not to have to cook. 15 years later. I hold the drip torch in my gloved hand and watch as the fire pours out of it and onto the dry grass and felt. Liquid fire like magic pools and leaps and dances behind me as I walk. The fuel is part gasoline, part diesel, 30% to 70%, which are good numbers, and the drip torch is red, which is lucky. It's funny because it looks a bit like a fire extinguisher, but it does the opposite job. The burning wick lights the fuel as it pours out and splashes flames on the ground. It makes me feel insanely happy and powerful, and reminds me of the looted lighter I had when I was a kid. There is a crash behind me, and I look around to see what has happened. A tall tree has succumbed to the fire and fallen down. Its fiery branches act as firelighters to the surrounding grass, which crackle immediately with flames. I see the fire I have set reach higher and higher, until it climbs the boughs of other, bigger trees and seeks to bring them down too. The smoke stings my nose and eyes, and my spirit soars. I want to dance to the sizzling and snapping of the glowing wood. Birds cry and launch themselves into the sky, into safety. I hope the other animals have found refuge too. I try not to think of the rabbits, the squirrels, the sleeping owls, butterflies with flames for wings. I've lit a path of 2 kilometers now, and my efforts blaze behind me as if I have left a trail of golden footsteps. I'm exhausted from the effort and the excitement, and it reminds me of the day I sprawled out on the soaking, smoking floor of the playhouse. I hear the fire truck as it comes my way, rolling over bushes and flattening dead wood. I turn off the torch and put it down next to me. When they get close enough to see me, I put up my hands. They roll forward, and a couple of men jump off the back and shout. They come right up to me and smack my heavy-gloved palms with theirs. They whoop with pleasure at the fire rushing from behind us. The fire chief is quiet, but he nods at me. We have been successful. This is the last of 3 backfires that will cut off the fuel for the raging main fire that has been engulfing the side of the mountain for 2 days. Today, the 3rd firebreak will cut it off. It'll die down into black stones and fragrant ashes. No more houses will be lost to it. No more lives. I knew it would work. 3 is the luckiest number. The end.